I'm going to go ahead and call this special meeting to order. We do have 4 board trustee members here, so we do have a quorum. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Oh.
Motion moved.
Okay, perfect. Motion has been made. I hear a second. We will now move on to action items. A, audit.
All in favor?
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So motion passes. We will now move on to action items, starting with A, the audit presentation and acceptance. Dr. Russell?
Trustees, tonight we're going to have Mr. Dewey come up and share some information around our recent audit that was conducted, and we'll have a short presentation to share about some of the findings in it.
All right, I'm going to be brief. I'm going to have Audra, the audit manager, here to actually introduce yourself and go over the audit for you. Go ahead.
All right. So I just want to start off with thanking Randy and his team for helping us get through the audit. We performed the audit over the 2023-2024 financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2024. We also audited a couple of federal programs in what's called a single audit. And then finally, we did what is called a agreed upon procedure, where we reviewed the expenses that are charged for the supplemental levy. So I'm just going to go through those real quick and give you kind of the results and things to notice as you're looking through them. So the first area that you guys should have gotten a copy of was the draft financial statements, and these are fully prepared by Randy. The only thing in there that we at iBailey provide are our audit opinions. So the very first guest pages in here are the audit opinions. So it goes on for a couple of pages, but in summary, all it is saying is that we are giving a clean opinion in what is called an unmodified opinion. So that is great news for the district this year. One thing I wanted to point out about the financial statements in general is that there were no auditing or accounting standards that had to be adopted this year by the district. So really, these financial statements look a lot like last year's. And if you wanted to do a comparison on them, they're going to look very similar. So that'll be very nice for you guys. As far as dollar amounts, just high level things that kind of will jump out to you. The overall revenue from the state was up this year, and that was just a function of them kicking in money to help cover the salaries in the district. And then also federal revenues were down slightly, and that was due to that ESSER money running out this year. So don't expect that to go back up, going into this year, because that's over. So just a couple of things to point out. As far as the footnotes go, one thing that is quite different from last year to this year is the OPEB plan footnote, which is note 8. And I don't know if you want to go to that or not, but really that the plan did not change at all from last year. What changed was the way that the accounting for that plan is done at the state level is a year behind. So that didn't push down into the district's financial statements until this year. So big picture, the plan didn't change. It's just the way that footnote cosmetically changed. So just wanted to bring that up just to kind of, if you were worried, like, why did this change? That's the reason why. So it's more of an accounting general change. So in regards to the financial statements and our conclusions on them, so like I said, there is an unmodified opinion. However, at the very end of the financial statements, and I'm going to make you scroll again, sorry. The very last page, actually. We had to report a significant deficiency in internal control. As a result of our audit procedures, we identified an expense in the current year that actually related to the prior year, and the dollar amount of it was big enough that we have to report it in here. So just wanted to bring that up, that was considered a breakdown in internal controls. And I'm sure Randy can explain anything that you have any questions about that with, and any remedies that may have already been put into place for that finding. So that was the one thing in regards to the financial statement that I did want to bring up as far as issues. The next thing I wanted to talk about real fast was back to those federal programs that we performed the single audit over. So every year, the federal government wants us to look at certain programs and make sure that they are in compliance with what is expected of them. So they give us a list of areas they want us to look at. Well, this year we audited the COVID-19 ESSER funds for the last time. And then the child nutrition cluster, so that's the school lunch program, and Title 1C migrant. And none of these programs did we have a single finding in, so that was good news. The Title 1C migrant program, we have never audited for the school district before. So usually when we haven't audited a program before, there's a little bit more risk that something like that would pop up. And so it's good to see that that did not happen as it was a new program. So that was good news for the school district as well. And then finally, with that supplemental levy, we just look through all the expenses that get charged to it during the year to make sure that it's in accordance with what was budgeted for it. And we did not note anything in those expenses that should not have been charged to the supplemental levy. So that was good news as well. And then finally, there is one other deliverable that was sent out to you guys called the governance letter. And basically that is our formal letter as auditors to you guys as the board members, just explaining what the purpose of an audit is. And if there was any issues that came up as far as disagreements with management, or if there was any adoption of standards, which as I had mentioned, there aren't any that they had to adopt this year. So, but one area that we did have something to report in this letter to you guys is what is called the past journal entries. So there's a handful of journal entries that should technically be recorded in the financial statements, but depending on the operations of the school district, it doesn't really reflect how the school district operates. So these items have not been recorded in the financial statements, and the dollar amounts are such that they don't materially misstate the financial statements. They're still considered materially stated. So, but the dollar amounts of these journal entries are big enough that we do just need to bring them to your attention so that you're aware that they are not in those financial statements. So just wanted to bring that up. Otherwise, that is all I have for tonight. So if there are any questions, let me know.
Hey, trustees, do we have any questions?
I just want to make sure I'm 100% understanding. So on page 3, where it has the understatement of assets and then understatement of investments, it's the same. It was just in the wrong place in the ledger. Is that what it is? It's there, but it's just recorded in the wrong place, or?
So that one specifically, the school district operates their monies with the state LGIP on a cost basis, but technically in accounting and generally accepted accounting principles, it should be at fair market value. So that's the dollar amount difference between cost and fair market value. So basically the financial statements are short by that dollar amount. So
Which is about $12 million in the LGIP. So just note that the difference in.
It's very,
value.
yeah.
Okay.
And we don't ever get the fair market value.
Right.
So that's the other side. We don't ever get it. So it's an accounting term, but it's one of those things we'll never do the adjustment because then
Okay, so they're not giving us fair market value interest. I'm sorry.
So
It's
that's
been a long
okay.
day.
So I can get on the credit. So the way the LGIP works, it's basically a dollar for dollar. Okay. So what we do is it's similar to like a money market account where you put your money in and you get interest daily on that. What happens is every one of those investments that are sitting in the LGIP actually have a value that's more than the dollar value. Basically, there's a little bit more of a market value difference. Most of it is real close to that dollar, but whenever we take money out, it takes money out of dollar, almost like a cash account. We get percentage income on that monthly, but the money we get out. So if we were to take everything out, I can't take it out on market value, which is similar to like a bond. I can only take it out at the dollar value, is similar to like a money market $1 account. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes.
There's other ones down to a little further if you want.
Yeah. And
They're a little bigger, but they don't make a difference.
I'm in the accounting lingo, so sorry about that.
Trustees, any additional questions?
No, but I do have one for Randy.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't remember. your
That's
name all of a
okay.
sudden.
It's hard for me to believe.
You. The only deficiency, if I'm understanding what was said, was on page 86 at the very end.
Yep.
So management should implement a process that will ensure that all expenditures incurred in a period are captured in the correct period. My concern with that is years ago, it seemed like we were short in the district millions of dollars because of an accounting error.
Yeah. Let me explain how this one worked.
So here's my
Yes.
concern, that something like this would manifest itself later as an accounting error because it wasn't properly recorded where it should have been. And now we have less, or hopefully maybe even more money than we thought.
Yeah. So here's what happened in this one, and one of which we have since remedied since. So during the year, we received a $192,000 bill from our Dillaboss Flooring for work that actually had happened a year and a half prior to that. Supposedly, they went through their accounting records and didn't realize that they had a big giant bill that we owed, and nor did we know we had it. We had done one of our schools, and I don't track that in that world. That's what maintenance does and all that. And all of a sudden, they showed up with that large bill. We had the money set aside for it, so it wasn't like we didn't have the money for it. But the fact was that didn't come in until the wrong year. There was nothing I could do about it at that point in time. The audit was done. It was in the prior fiscal year. There was nothing to do. It's one of the first things the auditors found in about 2 seconds. I knew they would. I'm not trying to hide it or anything, but there was nothing I could do at that point in time. It was something. So one of the things we're doing differently is on our bigger projects over $50,000 now, we're making sure to put it in a different way in the system to track it, to know. Most of the time, that's how he does. A little different process and maintenance at that time. So it kind of frustrated. It's big time, but there's not much I could do
And
about
it took Dillabot a year and a half to find out they were missing.
That they needed almost
$192,000.
$200,000. Yeah, that's the other side of it. Is I can't believe any customer would, or any vendor would ever wait that long. It was definitely one that threw us for a loop as well, to notice it was that much. I could see 10, 15. Yeah, that's what I said as well. It was very odd, and that there's nothing. I was just like, I couldn't fathom it as when it came in last year as well. It was a very frustrating bill. Other than that, we go through all those pretty high, but it was just a very random thing that happened.
So is that the one instance that
Yep.
That was my question.
That's it.
facilitated this recommendation to
Yep.
make sure that
Yeah,
And
and so it was material, and the thing was, it's actually, believe it or not, our main financials, it's not material, but because it came out of our lottery fund, that one has a really much lower materiality, and so it just kicked that. There was no way to get around that. If it was in the main one, it would probably have been on that past one where it didn't materially affect us, and so we didn't need to make it. But it really should have been a prior period adjustment in last year. Doesn't affect anything in our cash and stuff because the money was already gone, the payables already there, but it was more of a frustration that I had for sure.
And so just for my understanding, now we have some type of an alert system on anything over $50,000 to tell accounting, track it, this
Yep.
hasn't been paid. And do we have anything contractually that says you can't bill us 2 years from the date?
Yeah, one would think that would be a good thing to do. One of the things we changed. Yeah, one of the things we've changed now is, and we actually changed it prior to this, and then this one hit us later, is when we do our big projects, we put the entire thing in. What we were doing at one time was just as projects came, we just paid the bill as came. The hard part with us, it was really hard to determine how much was left on the project. Usually we have those projects, they're managed through our Design West and that. Well, all of our flooring ones, we go direct to the client, they don't go through a process like a normal construction loan type where they have to come through bid 1, bid 2, bid 3, and that kind of stuff. So now any of these big projects, we put the entire thing in, and then we brought in and we put it into budget that way to make sure we're tracking it, to make sure we're getting all the bills in. So we started that actually prior to this, but when this one came in, we hadn't been doing that on our big ones. So,
Okay.
and all the other ones on those past adjustments are on a government-wide basis, which means nothing to us. Just, it's GASB 34 stuff that makes no difference, like OPEB and that kind of thing. It doesn't really matter.
That's my question. Trustees, do we have any additional questions, or we can entertain a motion at this time?
I don't have any more questions.
Okay, so do we have a motion to accept the audit for the 2023-2024 fiscal year audit?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay, motion has been made, and I have a second from Trustee Jennings. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, with that, we are going to now move into action item B, Threat Zero School Violence Prevention Program. Dr. Russell.
Chair Taylor, trustees, tonight wanted to have a discussion around Threat Zero School Violence Program. This is a program that the city of Nampa and Mayor Kling had purchased with their ESSER dollars that were running out at the end of this year, similar to what happened to us as a district. This was a program that the mayor and city council felt would be beneficial for the city, but was also having hopes that the school districts, both Nampa School District and Valley View School District, would use the program. So when that information came to me, I shared with the mayor office that what we would do is run this through our safeties team. Our safety team does our overall safety plan. I felt like it'd be important for them to evaluate that. And so during the month of August, our safety team did evaluate Threat Zero. Threat Zero has two basic programs. One part of the program is a reporting system where if school students or staff feel like there is a threat, they can go ahead and report that, and it like gets it to their proper authorities. The second part of the program has to do with an educational piece, and this piece shows instructional videos to students. They're about 5 or 6 minutes long, and they have to do with recognizing threats in schools and how to respond and what to do if they recognize a threat or a possible threat. So it's a prevention-based program. When our safety team examined those two components, they realized that the reporting system actually didn't meet all the requirements from the state of Idaho. And we actually had been looking into a program that the state of Idaho had adopted for reporting called CTEL Now. And that is something we have adopted so that we have a system that we can report some threats on. So we decided to not implement that portion of CTEL Now. But the video section, the team felt that is one area where we have not educated our students well about possible threats and what to do in a possible threat. It also speaks about some resilience and some other things around mental health and behavioral health in some of those videos as well. And there's about one video a month, I believe, is what it shows for about 8 or 9 months. So we began to kind of put a schedule together in our schools to be able to show these. And then one of our administrators came forward and said, well, is this a curriculum? And that I thought was a really good question. And initially I thought no, because it's this is a program around school safety. But then I began to realize that this would be something that would take class time. This would be something that we would show to all 612 students. And that began to make me think, oh, well, maybe it is. And if it is curriculum, then it has to fall under Idaho Code 33512A, which is the adoption process that we're all aware of. So when we adopt curriculum like math or reading, we have to go through the community adoption process, and then the board has to ultimately look at some of those suggestions and make a vote on that. So when I looked at 33512A, I thought, well, I'm not sure. It doesn't really define curriculum, but it does in 33118A, which is what 33512 references. And so just bringing up 33118A, if you look kind of there where it has curriculum materials in quotation marks, it says curriculum materials is defined as textbook and instructional media, including software, audio, visual media, and internet resources. And I thought, well, that's exactly what a video would fall under, particularly if we're going to be showing that in schools to all students. And so then I began to wonder, well, maybe it is curriculum. So then I reached out to our legal, and I reached out to the State Department of Ed and asked them, and our legal felt, well, since they're technically, yes, if you read it verbatim, they said it could be, but it doesn't have standards or tests tied to it. So therefore, our legal felt like, no, that's probably maybe too stringent of a read. Sent that on to our State Department of Ed. They felt similar. They said, no, I don't think that's really the intent. I said, well, do you have an opinion from the AG or something that could actually give us some legal opinion other than just a personal opinion? They said, no, that's not what the state of Idaho does, or the State Department does. Although they did do it actually for another law. So anyways, I won't go down there. But at that point, then I began to get just concerned, because we have had concerns in our community around curriculum, and did not feel comfortable with the superintendent of just giving a stamp of putting something in there, and really felt like it was the school board's decision to really look and decide, is this a program that we should implement, and does it really follow the law or not? And anyhow, that's why we're here tonight. The other information I got, though, was from the person who oversees CTEL Now, not CTEL, sorry, Threat Zero. His name is Doug Hart. He is presenting at ISBA this week. He's actually presenting on Wednesday. He wanted to invite the board so that they could come and kind of look at it and see it if they had questions and get more detail about the program. And then he also, one of the other concerns I had with it was not only just, does it meet the law or not, is the city bought this for 1 year. And we don't have the funding in the district to be able to pay for this. And I was kind of concerned about, well, do we start something for 1 year and then all of a sudden it's gone, there's no money, and then why would we do that? That was one of the questions our administrators asked. Mr. Hart has agreed to give the district another year, so that we'd have it for 2 years if the district were to adopt it. So I think it's important for the board to have that information. And that the city council will repurpose the funds to another part of the curriculum or the city's budget if the district chooses not to go forward with CTEL now. So that's kind of why we're here tonight with that.
I have a question. Then if we're looking at this limited program and as a curriculum adoption, how are other limited programs treated, like Red Ribbon Week and other like things that are attached to grants that require some kind of instruction or participation? How are we treating those?
Well, Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, I think the question is, do we treat this as a curriculum program or not? So supplemental programs are programs that you would use for most students or some students, but not all students. And I think that the difference is taking class time for all 612 made me realize, oh, maybe this is kind of getting to a gray area. I think with some of those, like an awareness program like Red Ribbon Week, where you have an assembly or you maybe take a few class times that, again, the law is new, right? 33-512 has only been around for about 1.5 years. To me, that would be an awareness program. Does it have internet resources? I don't know. To me, it's a pretty questionably written law, and how you define it and then how do you interpret it. That's tough.
So Dr. Russell, Madam Chair, if I could, so do you know if the city purchased this specifically for use in the schools, or do they use it in other city agencies or other departments?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, it was purchased to use in the city other departments, and they are using it in the city, but they were also hoping that the schools would use it as well.
Okay, and so they're only going to have it for a year unless they purchase it for another year?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, that is my understanding.
And Threat Zero, I wish they changed the name because all I could think about is The Office and that movie that Michael Scott made called Threat whatever. But is this something that could be used like in a mentoring period?
And could it also be used to add to that question, just as an opt-in, opt-out?
Chair
Is that
Taylor,
simple?
Trustee Kirkman. So the first question, could it be used in a mentoring period? That's kind of how we were originally starting to structure it when we were starting to discuss that with some of our schools and structuring that. Where would that go? The mentoring program or advisory period would probably be where you'd use it once a month, just because that's something that kids have. And so schools, we were giving them an opportunity to kind of decide when to use this best. So if we were to accept and use this awareness program, then we would use it in probably a period like that, but we would work with the schools for them to determine it. For Trustee or Chair Taylor's question, could we use this as an opt-in? Yes, but here's, I think, the logistical difficulty with that. If you did an opt-in, we would have to send that all out to all the parents and get the feedback back. Then we have to determine which kids are allowed to do it and which kids aren't. And then for that 1 5-minute period in advisory, we'd have to say, you 7 kids need to go somewhere while we watch this video. And then 5 minutes later, we want you back in advisory.
So it's just a logistical.
And it just seems like a logistical nightmare of where you're going to send, maybe 280 kids in a middle school or 450 kids in a high school for 5 minutes to bring them back. So it just doesn't seem like it'd be a great.
And did our safety team feel like it worked in accordance with our safety plan?
Chair Taylor, our safety team did think it was an area where our safety plan is weak as far as educating our students on how to respond or how to recognize a threat. It is something that we do think we need to strengthen.
Can we look at what a threat? I mean, what is a threat? What does this address? What are we talking about when we say threats?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, I have not watched all the videos. first of all. So I think that's important. I believe it is if there is possible something as serious as a threat of a shooting or inevitable harm, but also it could be something as simple as, bullying. It could be abuse. It could be recognizing some of those things is my understanding of what the program
In
is.
or out of the school? I'm asking questions that you probably don't know.
Yep, Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, I believe it is focused around schools, like how to recognize things that could happen at school. The idea of the program from Mr. Hart, who's a very skilled FBI agent who's worked with many crises across the country, and he's helped develop this program, has understood that it's very hard to keep school safety and lock everything down to try to prevent it. He thinks it's better off to be more education prevention and allow the students and the staff to be the best defense rather than arming or locking schools and all the other kind of hard safety things that they would try. And so his thought would be if you educate folks, you have a better safety program. And I think that's why he would love to be able to maybe answer some of those questions if you were at ISBA.
Sorry, Trustee Benz, on a follow-up to that, was there any input from the Nampa Police Department on whether or not this would be beneficial? Because if this was adopted, we'd have to make sure that it falls in line with our safety plan. We want to make sure that.
So Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, great question. I asked the same question about our safety team. Our safety team thinks it would fall in line with that portion, which is why the reporting portion was something that we didn't feel would fit. We already had a program for that.
So when you say that portion that includes the Nampa Police Department?
No, the portion of just education.
Okay.
So when I talked with the Nampa Police Department, they said it's something that's great. Yes, it's something that could help. Is it the key missing piece for the overall plan that's going to make our plan weak or strong? They didn't really feel like that. They felt like they have a very strong plan as it is. And I feel very comfortable with the work that Nampa PD does and the training they do and how they help develop our plan and review our plan and review our strengths and weaknesses of our schools. It won't do any of that, but it's something that will support it. And they felt like in that sense, it was beneficial.
Trustee
And
Benz.
then I have two questions that are kind of related. How many videos are involved in this program? Is this a long, extended, year-long thing, or is it just like a week worth of 5-minute videos? How many videos are we talking about? And if we were to treat it like a curriculum adoption and go through the formal process of the committee and all that stuff, I don't see the timelines in the code that you sent, the two sections. I know that for the ELA and the math, there's several meetings and the timeline's kind of extended with public comment and all that stuff. What would the timeline even look like if we went through? And is it going to take longer to adopt it than to?
Yeah, so
Watch the videos.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Benz, great question. To answer the first one, I believe it's about 9 to 11 videos that are supposed to be shown once a month. And so when we looked at it, I think we got around once a month, maybe 1 month had 2 to get through all the videos. Okay. If the board were to see this as a curriculum adoption, I think the whole process then has to look a lot different, because when you do a curriculum adoption, you have to do an RFP for an all open call. So that any program that is a prevention program, the district would have to say, we're willing to look at this. But then the district would also have to have funds to be able to pay for that. Now, remember, this is paid from the city. So the district does not have funds to pay for that. So I'm not sure why the district would do an RFP. But if you did an RFP and then you got bids and proposals, you'd have to have a committee to look over those bids to determine which one is the front runner, and the board would have to review that and take a vote. And so, yes, it would take months. So there's a completely... If the board would see this as curriculum, then I don't believe we could use Threat Zero because of that requirement to open up an RFP and say we would like a threat program in our schools to educate our students. And then Threat Zero would have to be one, but then the district would have to come up with the funds to pay for that.
Has Valley View already implemented?
Chair Taylor, no. Valley View also saw this as a curriculum, and they have not used it this year.
But Greg, every curriculum that we have in this district is geared towards some type of standard, meeting some standards required by the State Department of Education, whether it's towards graduation or whatever the case might be, depending on the grade level. I personally don't think that this would qualify as a quote unquote curriculum, simply because of that reason. And it has a very finite time frame, 1 year. I think but before I would adopt this, I'd want to see the program. Is there any way of making it available to parents so that they can see it also?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman's a question I can ask.
And I am
What-
going to piggyback. I also don't see it as curriculum, but if we're not going to have an opt-in, opt-out, I need to be able to review it as well because we don't have eyes on it. There's no committee review. I'm in the same boat.
But if this could be something that could be reviewed, or if we could educate parents and children at home, if parents want to say, hey, let's watch this video for 5 minutes or whatever the case might be. I think anything that we can provide that provides some legitimate education to what threats are to schools, I think is a good thing to at least consider, especially if we're not paying for it.
And I'm with him. I'm the same. I very much so would like to review the videos.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, agree. It's, I hope you understand my confusion, my not really what is not curriculum. It's something that initially you think, yes, this is something that you see could be beneficial. You read the law and you realize, well, maybe we should be careful. Then when I did ask to see the videos, a couple of samples were sent, but because it is proprietary, there was not a huge desire to just share all of the program. And so I think that's something that we would have to
But the
ask.
city's already paid for it though. Let's get Mayor Kling to send it to us.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, I believe this is why Mr. Hart would like maybe some of the board to come see his presentation and be able to talk with him. It is Wednesday afternoon at 2:30. So if anybody's headed that way, I can happy to send you more details, and it might be worth stopping.
You can always look at the letter of the law or the words of the specific wording of a statute, but there's always legislative intent behind that. And,
Yes.
and given what the State Department of Education said, what attorneys may have said, I'm inclined to believe that meet every one of those things for curriculum.
I don't think it does either. Trustees, I am is that we do not have an action here. Is that correct? We have a request for additional information.
Yeah, more
Yes.
information.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. So with that, Dr. Russell will request more information, and you said 2:30 at the ISBA Wednesday, if we're able to make it. Everybody's.
I will
heard
send
that.
more information on when that's taking place.
Okay. We will now move on to C, the new LGIP account request.
Chair Taylor, trustees, Mr. Dewey's here to share about a new request for an account that we need based on some funds that came.
This one's very quick. And so we have received 80% of our new facilities money. It was about $36 million that we've got right now. So remember, the plan of this is to put in an account and make interest on it, because this can only be used for capital projects, can't be used for operations, can't be used for maintenance, but the interest can be used for maintenance. So this is the money that we're trying to build up that basically replaces our lottery money that we've lost every year. So we don't anticipate being able to use it because we have to put it into account for a while to be able to earn it. But we do want to keep this money separate. So in order to do that, I want to put it in a separate LGIP account, which is similar to what we talked about in the audit. So if we could do that, that would be great.
So $45 million that we'll be receiving soon. Any idea what the interest on that might be?
So right now the LGIP makes anywhere between 3.5%, 4%. When we looked at it, we looked at about 1.5 to $1.6 million is what we're hoping a year. That was assuming you had the full amount and we don't use any of it.
Yeah.
So the plan is there are some big projects we might need to do, a couple roofs, and those obviously we out of general funds, or we're going to use this. So
And how much did we lose from lottery?
about
Well,
1.25,
So about the
1.3.
same. So
Yeah, so hopefully it'll be there, but the reality of the situation, we're going to use some of it, but it'll go down a little bit. So if we can at least maintain to get about the 1.4, 1.5, then we'd be better off than where we were before.
Well, one roof is going to wipe that interest.
Yeah, the
And
central
can
roof
you
is one that
remind me
needs it.
term of time? This money, the intention is how many years?
So this has
10.
got to be used for
That's
10
10 years.
years.
Thank you, 10 years.
Correct. And it needs to be spent by the 10 years as well. So we have a plan in place to what we think we're going to do with it, but it's down the road on that.
Okay. Trustees, are there additional questions for Mr. Dewey? Okay, do I have
and you probably might, well, you might not have the answer to this question. This is 80% of the anticipated funds, correct?
It is 80%.
Do we know when the other 20 will be allocated?
Yeah, so basically what they're trying to do is they're doing it off current year numbers. This year, isn't it? I mean, the midterm numbers aren't officially done until November, the first week in November, this Friday. So actually it was probably the first, because the first Friday in November, which is the first, I guess. So that has to get to them. They have to go through it. Then they also take out all of our online students with that as well. So we don't get to count any of those kids. So it takes a process to get that done. And we have until February to get all of our numbers right. And so I anticipate seeing the rest of it probably in March is what I'm thinking.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chair Taylor, I'll make a motion to approve a request to approve a request for the creation of a new LGIP. What does LGIP stand for? Local General Investment Pool account for the facilities fund.
Second. Motion has been made. Chair Taylor has seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. I will now entertain a motion to move us into executive session.
I move that we move into executive session per Idaho Code 74-206, 1, items B and D. So B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student. And D, to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 of Idaho Code.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Chair Taylor,
Aye.
Trustee Kirkman,
Aye.
Trustee Jennings,
Aye.
Trustee Benz.
Aye.
And then to the audience, no action will be taken after this. You guys are welcome to stay, but the only time we will come back out is to adjourn.